It's the three of us again having another Jerry Lewis roundtable discussion. My name is Audi, otherwise known as Brendan Byers III, but today I'm using the alias pseudonym Helmut. Why the hell not? And I'm also joined by Stella Purdy and Morty S. Tachman, also known as Classic Cat Litter and Thad McCandlesticks. So welcome to the discussion. We're going to cover a part of Jerry Lewis's career that you don't really hear enough about, his post-Paramount career, the films he made from 66 to 70, 71 in that period. And also we're going to talk about, well, what made him leave Paramount in the first place. And also we're going to talk about a lot of the TV shows that he appeared on, such as the sitcom Mad About You in the 90s. And again, we are so glad and proud that our first two videos were very well received. I made the point to dress up this time, because that's very critical, So, y'all, before we get started, I think it's very fitting that we do like a ritual or a preamble of sorts. I think we should say like a pledge of allegiance to Jerry. So can y'all just repeat after me? Okay. Okay. In lilac.
Lilac.
And lilac.
Schmedervik.
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 Gulick.
Gulick.
Coolidge.
Shoibut.
Shorbit.
Minoivi.
Manoivi.
Minority.
Lady. Amen. Or excuse me, shalom. Okay.
Shalom.
All right. Now we may begin. Okay. Thank you.
Also, we're going to talk about the films that never were.
Ooh.
Yes.
Never were.
Okay. Well, let's keep us on track then. So y'all moderate me because, I can get on a tangent and all that good stuff. So it's 1965. From 1957 to 1959, and then from 61 to 64, Jerry Lewis is the top moneymaker in Hollywood. 1965, he had two very successful films, maybe not as much as the others, but they're classics, Family Jewels, and what ended up being the last Paramount film, which was Boing Boing, right? The film with Tony Curtis, where he just acted, he didn't direct. So let's get to basically Boing Boing. No, excuse me. Was it Family Jewels that where he finally ended it all? Which was the last one for Paramount? Family Jewels or Boing Boing?
Boing, but I just looked it up, and I think while he was doing Boing, he hadn't quite finished editing the Family Jewels yet. But
okay, well, my understanding was that Family Jewels, the Paramount, they were complaining about him going, was it over budget or just spending too much? What made Jerry is it true what Jerry said in the E! True Hollywood Story that some new management came to Paramount, they didn't like his handshake deal, they wanted him to sign a contract, and he basically picked up his marbles and left almost immediately? Is there any truth to that?
Yeah. He was just upset with the films and the way what the direction Paramount was going in, I think. And then as you see Paramount films in the later half of the 60s, they're really, some of them are violent and sexual. It's just the whole film industry started taking that turn, and of course it never changed until the late 70s. So
and
yes.
Also, I when I was reading some of the Sean Levy book, apparently they would give him about $1.8 to $2 million at that time to make films, and as long as he would garner at least $3 million at the box office, they would be okay to do that. But I think also some of the executives at the time were they didn't like it that he would have so many hats, like writer, producer, director. And so when when that vehicle came out, they were like, oh, well, Jerry's just going to act. He's not going to direct. And maybe he'll just be happy just acting. But Jerry wanted to continue to direct and produce and do all these things. And there was a lot of, I think, tension with some of the executives at that time.
So did he do Boing Boing basically just to fulfill his contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly what Thad said. Like, they said, we're not going to have you direct at all anymore.
Wow, they actually told him that.
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder he left.
Or very little anyway. They just wanted him to do mostly their movies. And how
So
basically just solely act.
So they're mucking with success. So the Nutty Professor, the Disorderly Orderly, those were recent hit movies. And why are they arguing with success? Wow.
people only love you in the minute, and then like they forget very quickly about their success, I guess.
Well, that's just the industry. For instance, the same thing can be said for what CBS television did. Shows like Andy Griffith and Mayberry RFD or whatever, these were top 10 shows, and they were canceled while they were still in the top 10 because CBS wanted to go in a more adult direction. So it must have been an industry thing, TV and films. And, well, the funny thing is, though,
that was about the same time period, right? 1965 or later?
I think 68 was when Andy Griffith finally got canceled. I believe it was 68, somewhere in there, 67, 68. But I think TV had already been heading that direction anyway. Well, Boing Boing is a fine film, and he and Tony Curtis are fantastic in it. And we talked about it in the last discussion. So let's just get to basically where Jerry is a free agent in Hollywood. So he still has his production company. He still has his crew, but he's just making individual contracts. So I think was Columbia who he made. Okay. So which was first? Three on the Couch?
Yes.
Three on a Couch was first, yeah. Which is funny because it's almost the same
formula
plot of Boing Boing, and it almost feels like a rehash. It's funny that he would go from Boing Boing to Three on a Couch immediately because it's almost not the same movie, but very similar.
He's playing all the key figures. I guess that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and like James Best is kind of in what Jerry's role was a little, except for James.
Mm-hmm,
he's not putting the moves on any of the girls or Janet Leigh, so that's different. But it is kind of a.
Who wrote that film?
Was
that an original Jerry screenplay?
No, Three on a Couch was just totally somebody else's work. I'm not sure why he. Actually, that's something to look up. I'm gonna look that up.
And for those who don't know, Three on the Couch is I guess you would call what was known at that time in the business as a sex comedy. Janet Leigh played a therapist who has 3 female patients, and Jerry, to get to Janet Leigh, gets to know her through having a relationship with all 3 of the patients, but as different characters. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So
for not seeing it, you know quite a lot about the plot.
No, I've seen it. It's just that once was enough. So no.
That one, when I first saw it, I would have to say all of the films that we're going to talk about grew on me as I watched them more. Like the first time I saw them was kind of but Three on a Couch.
I've had scenes creep up on me where I didn't laugh when I watched the scene, but I would be either on the train or the bus or something going to work, and I'm just giggling. Probably the best example for that is the errand boy when he sneaks into the sound booth when the female singer is dubbing a vocal over the actress's screen, so Jerry when he records, his vocal, so they're doing that test run, and all the executives in the theater, and and he goes from a woman's voice to Jerry. That just cracks me up. Still cracks me up. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the story was by Arnie Sultan and Marvin Worth, and the screenplay was written by Bob Ross and Samuel A. Taylor. I'm assuming not the same Bob Ross.
Not the MDA Bob Ross. So.
Yeah.
It's possible, you know. Okay.
You know what's also interesting is at Paramount, probably because of the high production value, you notice that in all of his color films at Paramount, they're very colorful.
Yes.
And then after he goes to Columbia, the film, they just don't seem as colorful, almost washed out, kind of. It's just it seems like it's
way out is like that. It's almost
and
like,
nothing stands out. And he was known for, when he would do a project, the color would stand out. I think for Cinderfella, he wanted a lot of color in that film.
And it could just very well be the quality of DVD, like how the quality re-release is. Because when I saw Way Out on the TV, it had spectacular color.
maybe it's been remastered. Maybe it's been restored.
Yeah, maybe. But also, and then the Big Mouth is a little bit more colorful, I would say, on the DVD or restored. It hasn't come out on DVD, but like someone bootlegged it or something, and it seemed a little bit more colorful.
The Big Mouth is probably the last true Jerry film of that decade, because he wrote it, directed it, starred in it, and even though that plot, I think the film could have benefited from some edits, but it really is a great movie. But I do think that by that time, maybe the Jerry flavor was a little dated. I mean, it wasn't that slapstick, but but I think it was a mistake to bring the Julius Kelp character back, or well, it wasn't called Julius Kelp, but it was basically the same character.
Mm-hmm.
I think putting that, that just padded the film, and it didn't need it. And but it's a great murder mystery type comedy. It's and I think Jerry is great in it. And one of my secret, goals is to just make my own cut of that film. And I'm sure Jerry is spinning in his grave right now. So.
Also,
what's interesting too.
Go ahead.
It was interesting also is that The Big Mouth was the last film he directed at Columbia, because they forced him for hook, line, and sinker to hire a director. So they did the same thing that Paramount was trying to do to him just a couple years earlier.
But yet, in Hook, Line, and Sinker, it has a lot of typical Jerry-isms. For instance, before it really gets to what the plot of the film is, it has several vignettes. For instance, him, fixing the sink and all that stuff. That's a very Jerry thing. So Jerry must have been very influential on, was it George Marshall who directed that one, I believe? Yeah. Okay.
Who directed the first, My Friend Irma pictures?
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so I think the speculation was Jerry hired him because he could direct the film and tell George Marshall what he wanted them to do. Right. And that was the last film that George Marshall directed.
Mm-hmm.
Did he just retired or what?
I think he might have passed away soon after that, or it's just I looked it up, and I guess it was the last one he ever did. So maybe Jerry pulled him out from retirement or what, but I think he was 78.
Or maybe he was the body double that swordfish went through, These are the jokes, people. Come on, wake up, come on.
He died in 1975, so I mean he's just pretty much near the end. I think he's just retiring.
Gotcha. Okay.
But going back quickly, like a lot of films in the late 60s and then the 70s had a lot of washed out colors. It was like drained of life. Like every time, even the 80s, like every time, like I tried to, because I make GIFs and stuff, which are animated, and you try to color the movies, it's just so hard to do because they're so washed out on those films, and like it's a total change from the 50s where everything was just so colorful and full of life, and even the early 60s had a lot of fun colors, but then it's just like drained and like, so it's sad that Jerry's films kind of got that way also.
Well, out of the, okay, let's count them. Three on the Couch, Way, Way Out, The Big Mouth, Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River, and
Hook, Line, and Sinker.
And then, okay, so that's 6 films for sure, other than, and he directed One More Time and Salt and Pepper as well. But out of those, I like all of them except the first one, Three on the Couch. I loved Way, Way Out. And I thought it went, it definitely had some strong sexual undertones, overtones in it. You know, this is the time that he and Connie Stevens are in space as the married couple, and Dennis Weaver and Harold Morris from The Nutty Professor, they're other American astronauts up there. And, you know, the scene where Connie Stevens is taking a shower, you know, that's just pretty, you know, for a Jerry movie. So it seemed like, did y'all get the feeling that Jerry was trying to segue into at least more mature humor?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, like even in his Frank Tashlin films, like all that stuff had like little risque moments and, you know, double entendres, and, you know, I feel like he was more, with the exception of The Night Professor, obviously, the Frank Tashlin movies had him a little bit more mature.
You know what? Speaking of Frank Tashlin, it seems like the only time Jerry ever tried to emulate Tashlin, the best example I can think of is that first scene back in 1961 of The Ladies' Man, the nervous city, and how just this chain reaction, one guy sneezes and bumps to someone, and then it's just this comedy of errors. It seems like that's the most blatant Frank Tashlin-esque thing that Jerry ever put in one of his films. Are there other examples? I don't know. All right. Sorry. I guess we're
maybe I'll think of one later.
Yeah. Well, here's one more.
Also, well, I was briefly going to mention, because I haven't seen Don't Raise the Bridge for a long time. And was that Columbia? Because Jerry Paris directed that. And I remember that one probably looks the most colorful out of the 6, if I remember.
That's true.
It's got a lot of color.
Yeah, what you sent me, I forget, you sent me that film. One of y'all sent me that film. It is just spectacular. And
I think they shot it. Did they shoot it over in, was it Paris or London?
I think it was shot in England.
It was in London, and then that's around, well, the next year is when he filmed One More Time. So he had started taking his films overseas at that time, and then he started doing a lot more TV shows overseas. And yes, that is Columbia Pictures. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I'm a big fan of the later 60s films, but to me, they're movies that you can watch, especially Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River. That was my go-to movie for a very long time to cheer me up, because there is so much going on. There's so many little subtleties. For instance, when they're on the airplane, and if you were listening to the announcer of the flight captain, just saw the funny, witty things that they're saying. But, you know, it's just every time I watch that movie, I pick up on something new. I don't know. I just think it's fashionable to diss those movies because it's not the Paramount heyday. I just think that they required a little bit more of an intelligence to appreciate them. And people who diss Which Way to the Front, they can just go suck it, because that movie is a comedic masterpiece. Now, I know that, Which Way to the Front was a huge hit in Europe. Huge hit. How were the other ones in Europe commercially?
I'm not sure what because the other day I found out that he had won Best Director in other countries too, besides Germany. He got Best Director for Which Way to the Front for Germany. Now, I'm not sure.
I think it was 8 countries where he won.
Yeah, Best Director, but I'm not sure which, let's see, films that he won those for. But it was definitely from 1961 to 1970 that he won those. So it was spread out over many different films.
Mhm. Well, I've heard Jerry say in interviews, he says in Europe, he said they are very into cinema, and the guy who got all that up on the screen, they just appreciate the filmmaker as much as they do the work. And, you know, sort of like how the musicians that I tend to gravitate more are the ones who are very hands-on on the making of their records. Like, I'm a huge Paul McCartney fan, you know, and most of his albums, he's playing 90% of the instruments, you know. So I think that's how the Europeans look at filmmakers, you know.
Yeah. And going back to Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River, like you had pointed out that it's a very British type of humor in that film. So it, like, you know, Americans might not get that. A lot of people don't get it. And even in today's British films.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Terry Thomas does like an awesome job in that movie.
The banter between them is fantastic. The scene where they're on the phone call when Jerry's recovering from the mumps, and he sends the negatives of of that prototype which was drilled in that one guy's mouth and blown over, and just the scene where he says, hey, this is only half the plans. Where's the rest of the plans? And Jerry says, well, it's just a little trick I learned from you. It's called protect yourself when it clinches, you know, and just that whole back and forth, you know. So, yeah, Terry Thomas is fantastic in that.
I have to say that's very creative, that plot point there. like
Yeah. And wasn't that based on a book, too? Well, maybe not, but
I don't think so.
And again, all the minor characters are great in that, you know. Again, the best thing to do with the Jerry Lewis movies of that period, watch them with no expectation. Just enjoy the work for what it is. Is it his all-time best? No, but no, I don't think anything will be as funny as Don't Give Up the Ship or the Martin and Lewis films. As far as like just true yucks, Don't Give Up the Ship is just fantastic. And of course, there are moments of genius in The Nutty Professor. And even It's Only Money. There are some great comedic moments in that, you know, just like true guffaw laughter. But Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River, it's a movie that is it's so witty that you can just appreciate it. And but yeah, in a way, it's like watching a British sitcom at times. And okay.
What did you think about One More Time? Because nobody ever talks about that film.
I've never seen it. Is that the Peter Lawford, Sammy Davis thing that Jerry directed?
Yes.
I've never seen it.
I have yet to see it, but I did find it in a thrift store a few months ago for like $1 or $2, and I immediately picked it up. I was like, I gotta watch this, but I have yet to watch that one too. Have you seen it, Kat?
Yes. So it's like a Martin and Lewis film. Like I feel like it's almost. Well, I mean, obviously it's a buddy type thing with salt and pepper. I guess Jerry did it as a favor to Peter and Sammy, so because something happened with the director. I think their original director dropped out or something, but he did it as a favor to Peter and Sammy. The production looked very. I have the production footage on my channel. There's like videos from that, and he was very serious about the whole filming process of that. it just didn't turn out the way he wanted it, and he wasn't really
So
into
Jerry was
it.
brought in as a replacement director.
Yes. But there's a lot of, so Sammy Davis Jr. basically plays Jerry, and Sammy already did like a lot of shtick from Jerry, but he absolutely full on embodies a Jerry like character.
Is that right?
More than anything he had ever done before. Even
now,
on
how was Peter Lawford in this movie? Because I love Peter Lawford in Hook, Line, and Sinker as Jerry's doctor. I think Peter. So was Peter Lawford better? Which one was Peter Lawford better in?
I haven't. Are you talking about Salt and Pepper to One More Time?
No. Peter Lawford is in Hook, Line, and Sinker with Jerry.
Oh yeah. I would say. Well, I mean, I don't know. Peter does have like a dual role here. He's pretending he's having like Peter Lawford's character supposedly dies, and then his twin brother takes over or something, and Sammy has to live with him in this castle. I've only seen it one time, but it's wacky. And I would say that Peter does a good job in this movie, so I would say I would give it to this movie.
So so Jerry's directing style. So basically, Jerry, a director, he gets a script, and the director gets a script, and so they envision the scenes and all that. Is there anything that you can pinpoint that for a fact that Jerry brought to the table that put his stamp on either one of those movies?
For One More Time, I mean, definitely, I'm sure that Jerry told Sammy to, embody how to act basically on that, or maybe Sammy did it on his own, but obviously that character came from Jerry.
Well, Sammy gave
and the slapstick. A lot of the slapstick in that film comes from that. And then I would also say that there was like one song that Sammy sings, which is kind of, I feel like it's almost like a statement about him and Dean. It's very strange that, what Sammy is singing about and his relationship with Peter Lawford's character in the story is very similar to him and Dean. And it's very, I'm like, is this a secret message? Because I feel like it is. And then also, I would say there's like some risque stuff in there. Basically, Sammy's character listens in on Peter Lawford and the girl he's with, like doing stuff, and like you could see Sammy like being turned on by it. I was like, whoa, what?
But in a Jerry type way,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I was like, well, that's definitely interesting that you went there, Jerry.
Well, Sammy gave Jerry a lot of credit in that episode of, remember Hugh Hefner had his talk show or his little show, Playboy After Dark, and Sammy and Peter Lawford are on the show, and Jerry makes a surprise cameo, and Sammy really sang Jerry's praises as a comedy director there,
And then around that time, Sammy wanted Jerry to direct his autobiography, Sammy's autobiography, but that never happened. So
really, who was going to play Sammy Davis?
Yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want anybody else but Jerry to direct that. So I forget.
When did Sammy's autobiography come out?
In the 60s, right? Called Yes I Can.
Yeah, Yes I Can. That's the name that was going to be the name of the movie. I didn't remember that until I just read it in King of
It's interesting in this period. Jerry directs One More Time, and then Sammy Davis offers him that, and then also Woody Allen offers him Take the Money and Run. and Jerry's like, no, I don't want to do it. I'll have to do like 36 weeks of prepping or whatever. And then he did the bellboy in like what,
Yeah.
eight weeks or
Less
than that. Yeah, less than that. And so and all these
necessity is the mother of all invention, because Jerry did not want Cinderella coming out in the summer. So brother did what a brother had to do, you know.
I
it's interesting that, I mean, all these influential directors are looking at him and being like, hey, will you direct me? Like, and what, a year later he does Which Way to the Front wins Best Director. I mean, they saw the potential of his directing style.
And also Woody Allen asked him to direct Bananas, his next film. And he put that off too. I think he was just putting them off. But I mean, I guess he did Woody Allen a favor, and he wouldn't have become a great director that he was if he wouldn't have done it. So.
I'm very curious to hear what both of you have to say, because I don't know as much about Jerry's unfinished projects and works in progress as you guys do. But I do know that since the mid 1980s, Jerry Lewis had said that there were going to be all these sequels to The Nutty Professor that seemed to never come into fruition. For instance, I remember him being on either Today Show or CBS Morning News when he was plugging Oreos at the time. He had a brief endorsement deal with Oreos, and he said that they were working on a sequel to The Nutty Professor, and he said that Oreos would be very prominent in film. And by the way, Jerry Lewis looked so good in that interview. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It was the morning. Did he not look fabulous? But anyway, sorry, I digress.
He was on quite a few shows promoting The Nutty Professor in 1987, and I guess they didn't finally get anything together until 1993 when they were just set to film it with Joe Piscopo as the Julius's son. Also, at some point,
just because Joe Piscopo, his celebrity value was in the toilet by then. They should have made it in the 80s where they might have made a couple of bucks. But 92, my God, he probably couldn't even get a decent table at a restaurant by then. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Send your emails, folks, to marvinretroradio@gmail.com.
You just dissed Joe Piscopo.
Yes. Okay, I'm sure I'm going to offend all three people in his fan club.
But yeah, but also there was
an asshole.
No, Jerry had said there was in 1987 or around that time, there was he had planned to make Julius's child a daughter. So I don't know, that was the first time I heard that in one interview.
Interesting that you mentioned 87, because Jerry Lewis, remember how he got in shape? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but remember how he got in shape after he quit smoking after the double bypass? He looked great in 84, 85, 86, and actually he looked fantastic in 87. I recently saw some 87 telethon footage. He was 61. He could have played Buddy Love that year.
Yeah.
He could have played Buddy Love. That's how good he looked. So I wonder if he was getting ready to do something related to Nutty Professor then. Because, I mean, he was lean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he would have, been in the film, at the very least. But, so I guess Disney was going to make the film in 93, but they didn't want him. So Alan, during our last interview, had said to me that basically they didn't want Jerry to direct, and Joe Piscopo didn't put up a fight for him. I guess he expected Joe Piscopo to say, hey, I'm not going to do this unless Jerry directs. And so he kind of just stopped talking to Joe Piscopo after that.
Well, Joe Piscopo is kind of a grifter anyway. That's interesting, because I remember I used to watch The Apprentice all the time, and I used to love The Apprentice when they just used ordinary people. Yeah. And there was one time where they had to get a celebrity to do some kind of fundraiser, and they actually landed Joe Piscopo, and he was like, hey, you got a cause? I got a tux, And then at the last minute, he bailed on him.
Seriously?
So
I think I remember that now.
Yeah, so Joe Piscopo, he must not be a guy of his word, I don't know. Maybe it was the steroids. Who knows? I don't know. Remember when he got all like hulky and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, it was,
Well,
What,
didn't
what?
do any of you know that versus the Nutty Professor, there was another planned sequel for Hardly Working? Has anyone heard of that one?
Wow.
Hardly Working Attacks Star Wars was the title they were. I don't even know what the plot would have been on that one.
Well, I don't
Let's
think
just,
it. I
that
think
was a
Jerry.
working title, right?
I think
That
Jerry
was the working title.
I think Jerry was just talking like this is just a movie he had planned because it was part of the 3-picture
With Warner Brothers.
deal. Well, Joseph. Oh, I just had his name. Poston? No. I'm gonna look that up again. But he was the producer for Hardly Working in the beginning, and they had made. He wasn't anything to do with Hollywood. He was just a businessman in other areas, and he made the deal for Hardly Working, and then they were going to do That's Life, which was the film about senior citizens. So I was going to have Ruth Gordon. I think Danny Thomas was associated with it. Red Skelton.
Red Buttons.
Oh, Red Buttons, sorry. And Molly Picone, who worked with Jerry before, and the jazz singer. And that one actually started filming.
For like 2 weeks, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think it's filmed for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then they ran out of money.
With Jerry?
Yeah.
As a director.
Yeah.
Oh, but not starring in it, just directing.
No. And he had to stop because that's when they ran out of money. And he had to stop production on it. And it was like almost a rehash of The Day the Clown Cried.
Yeah, almost 10 years too.
Yeah, and he almost lost Hardly Working, but luckily this guy, I forgot his first name, but McNamara was his last name, and a bunch of other backers helped Jerry rescue this movie, and he produced the rest of the film, the post-production, and the release of the film. And I think that's why McNamara also did the Super Force show, and I think that Jerry did that.
Well, that explains that. Okay.
Yeah,
so
sci-fi Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Jerry directed an episode of Super Force, which was a futuristic sci-fi TV show set in 2020, very similar to what's happening now. And I think Jerry did that as a favor to the McNamara guy.
So during the That's Life Hardly Working period, was he also shooting Hardly Working and That's Life roughly at the same time?
Yeah, because
they both had financial. Yeah, they both had financial difficulties, and I think they had to shelve Hardly Working for a year or two. I think because of money difficulties.
I remember when Hardly Working came out, and I don't want to give away my age, but I was in elementary school when it came out, but I remember Jerry. He didn't look like 1981 Jerry. He looked like 1979 Jerry. So here's a 1981 Jerry, or it's 1981, but this movie, it looks like 1979 Jerry. So it was just clear. I know Jerry's hair. That's how I can tell. And I just go by the year. I can look at his hair and tell you what year it is. And
this doesn't make sense. Hair is not correct.
Well, the movie was just, a huge success in America. And funny, I didn't see it, but a lot of my classmates saw it.
I really wonder if there's any footage of That's Life, or if anything was saved from 2 weeks worth of shooting. Like, you'd have to have something.
Probably in the Library of Congress.
Possibly. What's that crazy concept cat that you were talking about with Hitler's Bellboy?
Oh, yeah. So I had no idea. I had no idea this existed until Morgan. He had told me.
What year is this? First of all, what year is this?
Well, I think
Is this like mid 70s?
It was late 60s to early 70s, but I think it's late 60s because he had sent this to Hal Wallace. And Hal Wallace.
What to Hal Wallace?
He sent the script to Hal Wallace. So he sent the Hitler's Bellboy, which was a sequel of sorts to the Bellboy, and kind of the Patsy, because the Patsy was kind of a sequel to the Bellboy. But this one was, I guess, about Hitler's Bellboy, of course. And at the end, it kind of has a similar thing, I guess, but it's really Perkins Hayes' wild writing. And basically the end, Jerry's Bellboy character hands Hitler the gun to kill himself, I guess.
Oh, that you know what? Jerry probably just was interested in the film just for that alone.
Yeah. I guess it also has a similar, like, how come we never heard you speak before? And then I forget what he was supposedly to have said, but yeah, and then he hands Hitler the gun to kill himself. So.
Well, and he killed him anyways, and he killed Hitler anyways, and which way to the front, so.
Well, the reason that he handed Hitler the gun was because, Jerry's hands was deformed like this, and he couldn't, So otherwise, Jerry would have done it.
But
Thank you.
what's interesting is didn't Hal Wallace and Jerry have a rift relationship? So I'm wondering why would he send it to him? Because why would he send it to him in like the late 60s when he's pretty much already left Paramount at that point? I mean,
Hal Wallace was gone from Paramount also at that point.
So why did he send it to Hal? Why did he send it to him?
I don't know. Maybe he did send it to, like, the years on the script are like unknown though. So that was just an estimate on like when it was. But supposedly he sent it to Hal Wallace, and Hal Wallace was like, people aren't ready for this, basically.
That sounds like something that Seth MacFarlane would do today. I can't see anybody pulling that off, but I like dangerous comedy, but that just seems a bit. Speaking of Jerry being chemically influenced, and I know we weren't supposed to talk about this, but back in the early days of Martin and Lewis, I think it was in the Dean and Me, A Love Story. I think it's in that book where Jerry talks about the first time he smoked pot. Dean Martin gave him a joint.
Yes.
And I would give almost anything to hear audio of Jerry, because remember in the book, Jerry says he went on stage and he was almost like Lenny Bruce, talking about all these, serious subjects, but I guess in a satirical sort of way. Is there any footage of that night? God, I would love to hear that.
I know. And also, Jerry talked about him using pot for like his sexual experiences, and like I think it was Playboy magazine or something, and like he was like wanting to eat all the food, like everybody. He even wanted to eat his aunt or something. It's like, what? He said some crazy things.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, it does make you do that. In the late 90s, I dated a cancer survivor who had to smoke. And so for a very brief time, I indulged, and I just could not stop eating. And I was like, ooh, those popsicles are good. And then when I ate all the popsicles, it was like, ooh, that rice-a-roni. Ooh, I just couldn't stop. And I just said, I said, it's a wrap on that. So,
Yeah.
that's my venture into the herb. So okay.
Yeah, so the Perkins Hayes, like, I guess, I mean, Jerry kind of started that in the 50s, like Percodan, like he was addicted to it.
So how come Jerry didn't mention the Percodan in his autobiography? Because the way he tells it, he never got his first prescription of Percodan until the 65 back injury.
I mean, maybe he was doing it illegally.
Well, okay,
Because
maybe
Matt Gray definitely introduced him and Dean to.
No. Because in the Martin and Lewis TV movie, in fact, I remember yelling at the TV. I said, "Man, they got to get their facts straight." Because there's a scene when Jerry and Dean are on stage, and Sean Hayes plays Jerry, falls off the stage, and then they show Jerry in the hospital being prescribed Percodan in the 50s.
See, I thought that was false, but there was like another book, I think it was a book on Dean, where it explains that Matt Gray introduced them both, and they were just using it, kind of recreationally, as well as like uppers and downers and all these other,
So Dean pushed it on him.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about pushed it on him, but Dean did get addicted to it too, and he had to go to rehab in like the early 80s.
Well, and I guess after, so when he had the fall on the Andy Williams show, and then he had to stop filming The Family Jewels, and then apparently with the Percodan, it almost kind of wrecked Boeing because they were debating if they would have to push it back, shooting it, and because he was in such pain, I guess, when he flew over to shoot Boeing.
You wouldn't know that from watching them.
Mm-hmm.
Not in that movie. Okay.
So do you think like That's Life would have been an interesting film? Or
just said in the movie that he would have done with Dean in the early 80s.
Well, we'll go to that in a moment. But it was supposed to be like an Animal House type film, but for
older people. Oh God, it just depends on it's all about the script and the writing. If the script is good, it's got to be a good story, and you have to have talented people convey the dialogue.
Well, and it's crazy that he has such a star lineup like Red Buttons and who was it, Danny Thomas, and like all these people, and I was like, whoa, what kind of flavor would that have brought?
Well, but in the 80s, they were all still very funny and show business legends, and they were also more risque. They didn't care anymore. They knew that their careers were set, so it probably would have been hilarious. And I also think that the fact that the George Burns Oh God movies were such huge hits, that had to have been, I think, an influence as well, because and also the Don Knotts and Tim Conway movies were huge hits. So it's a shame that those movies didn't get made, but the French films did.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't go back to that one. That's odd. And then online, I just recently noticed that they treat it as an actually made film that came out, and I was like, no, he didn't finish.
Well, it went into production, so I guess that's enough, So, okay.
What's this 80s movie with Dean that he was supposed to do?
So Paradise Road was Pierre Bogdanovich's film that he wanted to make with Frank Sinatra as the lead, and then it was a group of mobsters, older mobsters, and Dean and Jerry's characters would be the mobsters as well, and Jimmy Stewart would have been in the film as well. I think, what's his name?
Jimmy Stewart as a mobster?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
And then even Ava Gardner was suggested as the female opposite, the co-lead, not the co-lead, but like his love interest for Frank Sinatra. So that would have been interesting to have them two back together, Frank and Ava. But Frank was like,
Jimmy Stewart as a mobster. I just can't picture that.
Well, they were also.
Give me the money, or I'll bust your kneecaps. That's my. I can't picture it.
Well, hey there, Pelly.
Yeah. Well, Dean I can see as a mobster, but just he would always have a martini, you know, and just.
Well,
So-
these things are like thieves / mobsters. I don't know, or something like that.
You
So
want me
what-
to kill him? Shall I shoot him, Dean? You want me to bust his kneecaps, Dean? Shall I? Shall I let you do that? Of course, Pally. Ooh, yeah, go ahead and light him up. So, but who knows? Again, this is why you have to have a good script, because when you don't have a good script,
You
that
should
happens.
you should recreate the movie for us. There is a book, Paradise Road, and you can just recreate it like that one guy who recreated The Day the Clown Cried. And
So
you'll do all the characters for us, Audi.
Okay, well, I do voices. We'll see.
So
But
what happened? They made a book, but what happened to the film? Like, was it financing? Did
I
it
don't
just
think-
fall apart?
It was the producers that never came through, and then also I don't think the script ever got finished. From what I read, I don't think the guy. It was the guy who. What was his name? The guy who did write the book was working on the screenplay with Pierre Bogdanovich, but I think he got interested in doing other things apparently, and it just never got finished. David Scott Milton is his name. He wrote Paradise Road, and he was going to write the script, and that never happened.
Okay, so that means no one has ever made it then.
No.
Wow.
That would have been very interesting because Peter
Yeah.
Bogdanovich and Jerry went back to like the 60s, right? I mean, I think didn't he if I remember correctly, Jerry would shower Peter with tons of gifts and a new car and different things like that when he was making tons of money at Paramount.
Yeah, Peter loves Jerry, and also mentioned him, and I think he even mentioned him in like Other Side of the Wind at one point. I think. I don't know.
really?
But he also he did some homage to him. Also, Lee Marvin was supposed to be in the movie.
Oh, that would have been.
Really?
I
Wow.
love Lee Marvin.
What a lineup of actors for that, man.
Yeah, and hold on just a second.
And Dean and Jerry had kind of reconciled by 81, right? I mean,
So-
They have been reconciled all along, I believe.
yeah.
So Frank had asked Dean if he was like, I'll try to get Dean, and then Dean was like, who gives an F?
Yeah.
He was like, Jerry was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then so Pierre was trying to get Jerry, and Frank was trying to get Dean, and I think they also decided to bring Sophia Loren in for the female role, since they weren't going to probably go there with Ava.
Yeah.
And then
Dean was well, first of all, Dean was probably richer than all of them by that point. Dean was, and if he didn't want to do something, Jerry had to work, he was rich, but he wasn't rich. Dean Martin was rich. He was just a television empire, and I think he invested in, was it Kodak or something or whatever, something like that. So, well, before we run out of time, we said that we were going to talk about some of the TV shows that Jerry appeared in. Did we want to wrap up the other part?
Oh, well, okay. There's a couple more films that. Did you know, Audie, that Hal Wallace wanted Jerry and Elvis to do a film together and kind of be like a Martin Lewis type thing, but
No way.
Elvis.
I had heard that, and the only film where I could have seen that working was Boing Boing. I wish Elvis had played the Tony Curtis role. It would have been perfect.
Yeah, but Elvis definitely didn't want to. He respected what Dean and Jerry had done, and this was in '57, I think.
Oh, in '57.
Yeah.
That would have been horrible.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I thought you were talking like in the '60s.
Yeah. And it might have been
No.
in another time in the '60s too, but definitely in '57, he had wanted them to get together, and Elvis was
No.
like, "No, I'm not gonna."
Elvis made the right. See, Elvis was still establishing himself as this rebel rocker, and to do a zany comedy with Jerry Lewis would have put Elvis in that whole showbiz camp, and it would have turned him into a joke. And with no offense to Jerry, but that just would have been a very odd pairing at that time.
Yeah, it was like clashing. Although, I mean,
Now in '65, I could see them working together.
like the Delicate Delinquent, that would have been the only thing I would have seen, like anything possibly that Jerry did that might have fit at that time. Because, Elvis could have been like a delinquent.
Well, only if they made one of the hoods the lead character instead of the cop. And Elvis would have been the lead hood. Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
I can sort of see that, but that's interesting.
Yeah, but Elvis was like, no, absolutely not. Like, I can't fill Dean's shoes, basically.
Yeah.
So that was good. Also, in around '65, Jerry wanted to remake That's My Boy with Gary Lewis in the role that Jerry had done originally. And then this time, Jerry would have played the father role. So
Interesting.
That
father role those are big shoes to fill because what's his name? Eddie Mayhoff, he played the father.
Yeah.
He was absolutely fantastic in that role. That would have been some big shoes to fill.
But it would have been definitely autobiographical.
Yeah.
So, it definitely would have been interesting to see that. But, that never happened. He had big plans for Gary to kind of, fill his shoes in the comedy scene. But, Gary went off into the drug area, and that kind of just never happened.
Yeah, well, Vietnam War screwed him up, so Okay.
What do you think? He was working on a film before he passed away, apparently, and he was set to film it, but we never got to hear about what it was going to be, and that's sad.
Jerry?
Yeah.
Did y'all notice how when they were promoting Max Rose, which ended up being his last film, they were promoting it as Jerry Lewis's final film when the man was still very much alive?
Yeah.
That just seemed... So,
it was.
Jerry was working on something.
Yeah, and he was set to film right when he got sick is when he was going to go. I think to not to New York. I think he was going to go to Canada or something.
I think I remember that. What was the title or the plot? I forgot, or was it unknown?
I think it was unknown. But also
I do remember vaguely hearing about that. Was it on the old forum? I think it might have been on the old forum. Somebody mentioned it.
And he was also working on a Martin and Lewis type show for Broadway, which never happened, and that's really depressing. That
Now I still won't watch Max Rose because I don't like tear jerkers, but I've seen clips, and it seemed like there was a scene when Jerry is among his peers and he's doing tricks and stuff like that. Is that true? He's doing was Jerry still able to walk at the end? Or I knew he had trouble with his legs near the end, but was his character pretty mobile in Max Rose?
Remember in 2013, he was still fully able to perform and walk around the stage and stuff, which was when that was filmed. But by 2016, he needed the wheelchair mostly.
Okay.
So within a year or two, basically, is when it all changed.
Yeah. Okay. So then he was going to make a film in Canada, directing or just acting or what?
I think it was just acting. I'm not sure. And then technically the last film that he made was that Brazilian film.
Yeah, where he's got the bellboy outfit on. That's a good scene. Jerry's good in that.
And then he comes out all suave with his tuxedo and drives off. in his
Right.
car with the
Yeah.
light.
That's a nice way to go out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so before we talk about the sitcoms and TV shows that Jerry did appear in, I always wanted him to be in the Golden Girls. I don't know how, but that would have been fantastic to see. You know, Dick Van Dyke ended up being that show's had like a lot. Alan King has done a guest role on the Golden Girls. Dick Van Dyke. I'm sure there are others I can think of. Burt Reynolds. It would have been cool to have seen Jerry. Leslie Nielsen. In the big finale, he was But I have seen the Mad About You. That was the '90s sitcom with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt. Jerry plays the billionaire or whatever who uses his money to, I don't know. Do you remember exactly what was the story there? He was really rich and he was.
I forget what he's doing, but like he's taking them on all these. He was taking them on a trip. He was bringing in these like opera singers to their.
Yeah, he brought in Pavarotti to entertain them in their apartment.
Yeah, he was doing all these crazy things, and then the one part where he's talking in different languages supposedly,
Right.
and he's like, blah, 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 blah.
Jerry was primal.
That was like my first time ever seeing him too.
Wow.
When I was 5 years old, and him coming on the scene, tap dancing. Paul Reiser opens up the door, and Jerry just starts tap dancing. And
was it that made you look into him? That's what it was?
No, it was like not until I was 21, and then I'd seen Cinderella when I was a teenager, but then I didn't start looking up stuff. I'd always wanted to see his work, but like there was hardly anything on TV, at least where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So but that was just my earliest memory of him.
I wish Jerry had done more of that instead of most of Jerry's television appearances in the 70s, I don't even bother watching. He was on Sonny and Cher, he was on Cher, he was on Pink Lady and Jeff, the variety shows. There are some fun moments here and there, but I just feel that it's just so below the bar, and I just don't enjoy Stan Jerry and those. What do y'all think?
I like him.
Which one is funny? Which one makes you laugh?
Well, his Sonny and Cher episodes, and then the ones that he just did on Cher, I think all of those are pretty.
Well, all right. In the Cher, when he did the Cher show, he was in a movie theater, and he was in the movie theater, and it was the feel around, and it had, if it was a movie scene that taking place in the ocean, water would hit him. That was funny. Now, the chess scene with Sonny Bono in the Sonny and Cher show, that to me was definitely on the high bar. And
I think
he gave credit to Sonny Bono to be in the spine.
He also did that same one with like a German actor on that German Lean, I think that's how you pronounce it, show. I think it was on the second episode that he recreated that in '73 or so.
Yeah,
it was still a pretty funny skit there too.
Yeah, so, I think I just don't like a lot of '70s variety show because it was just so this family fare phoniness that I just detest. I would rather watch Jerry on a TV show in the '80s and beyond than anything in the '70s. Same for his own show, his NBC series in the late '60s. The first season I don't watch. The second season I love because it's really just almost like just Jerry doing his nightclub act. They figured out that Jerry was what they needed,
I definitely prefer the season 2.
Yeah.
And the skits, just the overall, feel of that. The Red Skelton episode.
In the 60s, right?
Yeah, 69. But it was weird because, like, Jerry just he totally was like tired and exhausted from the skit, and he was just like, okay, I need a break here.
I need to watch that. I need to watch that.
Yeah, so it was just an awkward moment. So I don't even know what happened there. And then the Follies show he did with Sammy Davis Jr. I think was pretty hilarious. I think that
Okay,
was good.
I'll give that.
I also heard that I also heard he was on the Engel Humperdinck show, I think in the mid '70s, but I don't think no footage of that is out. Is it out there?
I've just seen photos, so I'm still looking
okay.
for that one. I just have photos. He's in the beard.
Engelbert Humperdinck
Yeah,
had
and
a
I
TV
read.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
1970.
think. Yeah. Was it 70 or 75, or was it 70?
It's 70, and Jerry has the beard from making
One More Time, Salt and Pepper.
Yeah, One More Time, and
Which Way to the Front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely Which Way to the Front beard because of just the goatee. Yeah.
Well, in the on a future discussion, I want us to talk extensively about Which Way to the Front because I really need to make the case on why that film is so brilliant. Because I avoid watching it for a long time because I always knew that it was the last film that he made before, the 10-year gap. So I just figured, well, it can't be good, So I think it was sometime in the late 90s where I taped off the television and said, my God, this is hilarious. I always wanted Jerry to make a Mel Brooks kind of movie. Even though I think Jerry is far more brilliant than Mel Brooks, but Mel Brooks, to me, had just established a certain standard that I loved in the 70s and 80s. And to me, Which Way to the Front is Jerry's Mel Brooks moment.
I mean, did both of you know that he worked with Bill Richmond on The Ladies' Man?
Who did?
Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks and Bill Richmond were writing drafts of, I guess, The Ladies' Man, and there's a part in Sean Levy's book where Lewis came in and they were pitching ideas to him, and then I think Jerry was frustrated that they were changing a lot of his ideas, and so he said, "I have a meeting to go to," and Richmond said, "You don't have a minute to wait and listen to a story idea." And he's like, "Why are you going to change my whole story?" And
no, Ken, you look marvelous. You look marvelous. You look nifty and neat and fantastic and marvelous. And you're everything in this business that makes the champion of entertainment being the marvelous performer that you are, and predicated by such the foibles of the human condition.
Hey, I'm Joey Bishop. Don't I look marvelous? Don't I look marvelous?
No, now that's a good Joey Bishop. He called me last night and
Jerry, I'm here 5 nights a week. I'm doing Johnny's show on the Tonight Show. Don't I look marvelous?
No, that's good.
I'm guest hosting this week and you're not.
Well, that's okay because I'm richer than you. He called me last night, Kat, and did the absolute worst Joey Bishop impression ever. Which is pretty sad, being that absolutely nobody even bothers doing Joey Bishop. So for him to still do the worst one, but that was good. Okay.
I did it a little bit better.
Keep this in. All right, let people hear the banter. Anyway.
Okay, so I was mentioning because we were talking about Mel Brooks, and I was saying that Mel Brooks and Bill Richmond were writing for The Ladies' Man at the time. I think it was called The Girl's Boy, and Jerry had an initial draft, and he brought in Mel Brooks and Bill Richmond, and they at the first meeting they were spewing out a bunch of ideas, but it was different than what Jerry had written. And so he prompted to leave the meeting, and Bill Richmond was like, "Well, aren't you don't have time to hear a storyboard concept idea that we have?" And he's like, "Why are you going to change the whole work, change my whole draft?" And he stormed out. But I guess that's the only time I ever know that Mel Brooks and Jerry worked together that I know of.
Well, was it supposed to be a collaboration, or Elvis or Jerry had solicited their feedback on his script?
I think it was supposed to be a collaboration, but Jerry was, I guess, adamant about, not changing so much of the story. And I think it was Mel Brooks that said, well, we're Al baiting and aiding to it, and he's like, "No, you're lying. Like you're changing everything."
Well, I would love to have seen what Mel Brooks had added, because one thing I think that Ladies Man lacked was more of a story. And it's a similar problem that I have with the movie At War with the Army. It takes place in the same location, the same spot too much, in that large dollhouse. Yes, it was a technical achievement, but I just felt that there was not enough of a story going on with Ladies Man. To me, Ladies Man runs out of gas really fast, even though it has some of the absolute funniest moments ever. But I feel like it could have used a little bit more scenes. Like actual different scenery. But I will always love the scene where the lady closed the door on his back, and you can see the meat from his back through the. I mean, that's just.
I love the part right before that, the one where he opens the door and the blonde slaps him, and then she opens it again, and she's more softer, and then he gets slapped again.
I forgot about that. Oh, so.
How dare you come back after leaving me and the baby? And then he's like, "Oh, she hit me again."
Right.
Mel Brooks did actually work with Jerry on the Jerry Lewis Show specials from 57 through 60. I actually watched one the other day that was on the Shout Factory. I think it was from 58. And Mel Brooks did some of the dialogue for scenes, skits for that. So they did.
It seems like that film. What's the movie where he's from outer space?
Visit to a Small Planet.
Visit to a Small Planet. The scene where he's in the beat club, with all the beatniks and stuff. It seemed like some of that influenced him, because there's that one scene in The Ladies Man where it's like the fantasy scene where he goes to that all white room. Mm-hmm. Did he conceive both of those scenes?
I mean, I'm not sure about the beatnik scene and Visit to a Small Planet, but I'm sure the vibe, because the vibe is throughout the whole movie, and very also rock and roll type of thing. He brings in Lillian Briggs, and then there's a lot of that one scene where it's just going throughout the house, and it's just they have like the vibe nutty or whatever, something like, and it's just like beats, and then more instrumentation comes in throughout, and then like people are just randomly snapping or brushing their hair to the beat or something like that, or like moving, like some people are practicing their trumpet, or like it's just really.
I need to watch that scene again. I'm probably not I need to watch it. I don't appreciate it as much because that's the only Jerry Lewis character where he's a little unlikable. Because he's kind of mean a couple of times in the movie where he, whenever anyone tries to reveal the secret and they start saying Mary had a little lamb, he can control what they say. He says, "Well, I got to tell you, this guy here is Mary had a little lamb." Don't you remember that?
Oh, you mean Visit to a Small Planet?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was like the Ladies Man.
I was trying to remember that. I've only seen Visit to a Small Planet once, so I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah.
Who directed that one?
He's mischievous, but I mean he is an alien, so I mean.
Yeah. Well, who directed that one?
I'll look that up. But Gore Vidal absolutely hated that, and it was from his book.
I do remember something about Gore Vidal hating that film.
And who? Let's see who directed that. I think it was Norman Taurog. Oh yeah, I knew that. Norman
Taurog directed that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't Norman Taurog do You're Never Too Young and another Martin Lewis vehicle?
Yeah, he did do You're Never Too Young.
Yeah.
He did quite a few Martin Lewis ones, and then he also did Don't Give Up the Ship.
He did that one too?
Wow, yeah, I think I do remember that one, yeah.
I need to find some interviews of Norman Taurog, because whenever I watch Don't Give Up the Ship, 1959, to me, it's a film that if it were made like in the 80s or 90s, the only person that could have played it was Steve Martin. I always felt like Steve Martin would have been the guy. Jerry is so fantastic in that scene, in that entire film. That was my favorite. I tell you, as far as if I'm going to make someone watch a Jerry Lewis movie because I know they will laugh, Don't Give Up the Ship is the one. I mean, as far as just genuine comedy, there's just so many funny moments in it.
It's definitely underrated.
It is. No one mentions it, and it's fantastic. You know, when he gets captured by the North Koreans or whoever, and and Jerry is telling them, well, actually, we won the war, and he takes out that saber or that knife and goes, or machete, and he puts it to Jerry's throat, and he says, "Who win? You win." Just fantastic, and how he walks while squatting to when they capture him. The scene when he's trying to get home to Prudence during the windstorm, he's at the airport, and the scene where he's trying to get up to the door, and the door in the wind is so forceful. And that is just brilliant comedic nonverbal moment. There are just tons of moments like that.
Also, the moment where he puts the cake. The cake is on the man's.
Yes, the man's head, right?
He launches it on, and it lands on the man's head.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to get it back, but the cake launches onto the man.
Well, a piece of cake ends up in a guy's hat, and so Jerry taps it to get it out, and it lands on somebody else's head. Yeah.
So it's like, how did they practice this so perfectly? Was this an accident? Because the people in the background, I'm not sure, their reaction is so genuine, and they're laughing just, naturally. So it's was this a blooper and they just kept it in, or what? Because it lands so perfectly on the man's head, and it's that's something you know if that would be you could plan that.
Yeah.
It's like one in a million. Yeah, that's a funny gag, and I've always wondered that too.
Yeah, and Jerry looks surprised by it too, and he looks like he's trying to keep it together.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what other TV acting performances do you guys, or Jerry TV appearances do you guys enjoy?
I like the jazz singer, even though I think he needed a little bit of maybe a couple more years of experience with that in dramatic roles, but he does a pretty good job, I think. I think it could have been longer. It was very short, shortened version of the story. And
did that air in color originally? Because I didn't know it was in color for years.
Yes, but not many people had color TVs back then, so it was colorized.
And then I think it
filmed in color.
It was filmed in color, yeah.
Okay.
And then I think they just also had the black and white kinescope as well.
Okay. The reason why I asked about that because I remember in the 1980s very well, the term colorized was something where Ted Turner was doing to a lot of films. He was taking black and white classics that were filmed in black and white. He was adding color, and colorized was that's what I think of when I hear colorized.
Yeah, that's horrible. I hate that.
Yes, definitely.
But his performance was kind of not panned. It was criticized at the time by critics, and so he kind of hid that one away for a long time until it was online, and some person stole it from the archives and put it online, and I think he kind of I think he saw that there was a better reception to the movie, because I remember on YouTube when it was so you could not see the film at all, and it was just so bad.
It's very grainy.
It was black and white, and it was so distorted and just it was like, please one day let this be restored, and luckily it was. And it's a good performance, and his singing is very, very nice on that.
The opening scene where he's on stage, he's actually doing some solid stand-up there,
Yeah. And then the
Did
Kol
the-
Nidre, like that, is very good. Singing at the end, and I hate that they cut it off with the credits at the end.
Yeah, they did.
I was like, stop, let him sing, because he was doing some beautiful singing for that last part.
Did the Lewis estate release the jazz singer, the restored version? I can't remember.
Yes. There's a whole thing where Chris Lewis is doing the restoration on it.
Which I have to say, I wish they would do more of that, like more of the specials or more of the stuff that is unreleased. There's so much at the Library of Congress that you could put out.
Well,
and that'd be great material.
I owe you an apology, Thad, because I was convinced that by now a lot of that stuff would be all over YouTube, but they must have a guard dog protecting all that. I don't know. I just I don't know. So, I mean, then again, why isn't the Tonight Show stuff coming out more? All the Tonight Show stuff he did. I mean, I'm sure the Johnny Carson estate has got to be sick and tired of getting emails from you.
It's true.
Let's just repeat this crap so Thad will leave us alone.
Going back to something, I do remember we forgot to talk about this, but it happened like a couple of years after the jazz singer, and Jerry had been reading Catcher in the Rye, and he wanted to do that as a film, and Holden Caulfield
he wanted to
everybody, of course.
Yeah, he wanted to play, was it Homer or the main character?
Yeah.
You know what? I just had a thought. Instead of Jerry, as soon as the Paramount deal ended, he should have started making films in Europe then. And maybe he could have ventured into some of these more daring plot stuff.
Yeah.
I think the mid-'60s, that was the time for him to go to Europe. That probably would have taken his directorial career in a whole nother direction.
I think he should have just kept trying in Europe, because Europe really appreciated his directing process. And there's so many interviews of the time from him in 71, 72, 73, and then plus a lot of, what is his name? Robert Benayoun. Did the book on him. And the documentary, which finally came out in 1982, but like it was a whole process of interviews over a span of many years that he did with Jerry, and he was appearing with him everywhere on his interviews as well in Europe, or at least France anyway. But
would anybody have financed them in Europe? Because I know like Nat Warsh, however you say his name, for A Clown Cried, he screwed him over. I mean, would he really have got a good backing if he would have gone to Europe?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure like he would have gotten them from like
Washburger or whatever his name is. Did he have any successful films to his credit? In other words, what made Jerry trust him in the first place?
I don't think
Did he have a track record, that Jerry could refer to? Did he have any credits under his belt?
I don't think he did. I just remember reading that because the other guy wasn't a Hollywood, the guy who kind of screwed him over on the Hardly Working also wasn't a Hollywood person. Let's see. I don't think. Oh, okay. I think so he did something in the 60s, it looks like. Producer Star Crash. He was from Belgium. He did That Man in Istanbul, French Intrigue, The Diamond Mercenaries, Starcraft. They seems like European. So
European TV.
So maybe he was maybe he was in Europe. So yeah. So like this one, That Man in Istanbul, is from Italy. So I guess he was exactly what I was talking about, a European producer. So maybe that's why.
All right. Well, let me ask y'all this. Jerry has often said, I stopped making movies because I didn't like the direction that Hollywood was going.
Yeah.
So that's why Which Way to the Front was the last film with a 10-year break, other than Concrete and other projects. Do y'all think he was just saying that, or do you think he was just so insulted of the way that Warner Brothers promoted Which Way to the Front in America when they had it double billed with what was the porno film that it had it on the same bill with, Deep Throat? I think I think that insult is what made him say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably so, but I mean, it is interesting that he went to Europe and he immediately started Clown Cry, which is a very controversial subject. And I don't know, but between all that and probably Clown Cried, I think that he pretty much, that was the nail in the coffin with Clown Cried. Because I mean, and he's a Jew making a very serious project to then get, screwed over by the producer and everything.
So in other
that's
words,
probably like final blow.
So it sounds like Which Way to the Front, that was when he decided that he was done working in the American system. So then he was going to do Clown Cry, and then that was a big fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he'd been wanting to do Clown Cried for years. I think like somewhere he said it arrived on his desk like in the early 60s or mid 60s, and he was like, no, I'm too young, I'm too immature to do this material at this time.
Yeah.
Well, of course, but now that we've all seen this footage, we all know that it wasn't a bad film, most likely.
Oh, you should mention the thing about Hogan's Hero that you were telling me the other day, because I think you're right about that. The Spy magazine article mentioned that it was a Hogan's Hero bit, and you said...
Yeah, I felt like whoever saw that must have seen Which Way to the Front, which has definitely a Hogan's Hero kind of vibe to it. But no, there's nothing Hogan's Heroes about the footage of the day the Clown Cried. Nothing. But I could definitely see that with Which Way to the Front. So again,
well, even there's a
reviewer.
There's a part in the Spy magazine too where it says that he has slicked black hair, and then watching the clown footage, I'm like, there's no slicked.
It was attributed to a woman, I can't remember who it was, who said she had seen it, and she said, well, how can I take him seriously? This role when he's got this slick black hair, But
it's
gray. It's gray in the film.
The only scene it was like black was towards the beginning of the film where he's at the bar or whatever, and like even in his interview, the interview that I'm currently doing the subtitles for, his hair is gray in the interview, like he completely grayed his hair. So,
which I would love to see when you finish that. Oh man,
it'll be this week.
And Harry Shearer is lying. I'm sorry.
He is a lying bastard. The universe will provide sooner or later. Did he really think that he was going to be able to take that BS to his grave, knowing that he would just sooner or later? Was getting laughs on Howard Stern that important to him to in that moment get a laugh out of Howard Stern, knowing that he was lying?
Well, and then Spy magazine too.
Yeah. So. Well. Does either one of you have a copy of The Big Mouth? By the way, a pristine copy.
Yeah.
Can you send it to me? I want to do an edit of that. Kat, long before I knew you, when Thad and I were first becoming friends, I actually began the process. I had a not so great copy of The Big Mouth, and I did my own cut of it because I feel like it's a fantastic movie. It's just over long. And I think I did like the first 15 or 20 minutes of it, and I sent it to Thad, and I did an excellent job. And I think I want to try that again, but I want a better copy of the movie.
Definitely the end is what needs to be cut.
Really? The end? Where?
Well, like, I don't know. It's just a lot of it. It starts draining towards the end.
Well, it takes him forever to get to the point. She's like, well, what is it? Because he never tells her the trouble he's in. And then, of course, the movie ends with him saying, well, it's not that important. Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, that's part of the stuff that I would definitely chop up. But
as long as we're sorry. I mean, as long as we're talking about endings, whenever I watched Three on a Couch, I always thought the ending was lacking something. Like, there was elements of the movie that were okay, but I was like, but the ending I just feel was, I don't know. I wish it had been.
I actually think the ending was pretty good. I don't know.
You talking about when they're on the boat or the yacht or whatever?
Well, the elevator keeps coming out with lots of people. The party is trying to escape.
That's the part that I found exhausting and grates my nerves. It's like watching a bad Abbott and Costello bit. You know what's going to happen, and it just keeps on happening. It's the same. I get almost you did the bit where Jerry is in the errand boy and he has to climb up the ladder to get the candy for the kids, and he's working at the candy store. Yeah, that's another one where I want to just completely just rip my eyes out because
that's my favorite.
It's
that's
predictable.
My favorite part of the whole movie.
Oh, that's like God.
Right. Would you like it if
I still burst out laughing at that.
Would you like it if it was shorter? Like, I mean, the joke's good, but would you like it do you think it needs like trimming in your eyes?
It's just not funny.
Also, Jerry risked his life in that whole big jar of candy, and then like the top falls off and like almost conks him in the head. Like,
I would say,
in that same scene, one of the kids actually helped save the bit because I think the top was going to fall, and you see the kid actually reach up to keep the lid on. That was not planned.
That seems like he was almost like a Buster Keaton, because Buster Keaton would do his own stunts.
Well, he risked his life for a moment that just grates my nerves. And I think Jerry is fantastic. And that was, I think, originally an Abbott and Costello routine. When Abbott and Costello had a TV show in the 50s, I'm pretty sure that is almost verbatim the exact same bit that Jerry borrowed from them,
Well, as Jerry once said, he could just do exactly what Abbott and Costello did, and because like when they were on the 100th episode anniversary for Colgate Comedy Hour, they actually dissed Abbott and Costello in person, and they're like, their routine, who wants it? We'll do it for you. And Dean and Jerry just did a takeoff of Abbott and Costello in front of them.
I've got to see that.
Well, I think that was during rehearsal. Oh,
there's no footage of it?
No. Well, the 100th anniversary show with all of them on it, I think is only at the Paley Center or the Library of Congress.
So who said that Martin Lewis did that?
Oh, that's on an article that I have, and then it's also in the book. Oh, it's a promo. Side by Side, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis on TV and Radio by Michael J. Haid, which I contributed some photos for, and
the only thing I have near my computer is this, but it's just the classics. This is the only thing I have near my computer. Y'all can't even see it, can you? Oh well.
Yes.
Oh, we're
it's the 4-pack.
We're all.
Oh.
Do it, Jerry.
There we go. I have the old 10-pack.
Oh, that's
DVDs.
a classic. That's the one with the director's commentary.
Yes, yeah. So we were talking about gags a minute ago, and you remember the scene in The Patsy when he goes to the singing musician, and I forgot his name. Who is Hans Conried? Yeah, and Hans Conried yells at him, and then his eyebrows are all down, and I always wondered. I was like, that must have hurt. Like, how did he? I mean, those had to be his real eyebrows, because he combs them back over.
Oh, again, it was a great bit, and then he topped a great bit by just simply combing them back into place. Genius. And yeah, that whole scene where he's catching the vases or whatever, that's just up there with his best stuff. I mean, just that's there's certain things that I show people when I want them to laugh, where they know that Jerry's funny, and then there's certain things I show people where I just want them to be impressed at just how skillfully talented he was, and that's one of them, for sure. So.
Going back to his TV work, I know we're gonna probably come back to the Ben Casey episode, but he
wait a minute.
because since he directed it.
10 minutes. Oh, we got 10 minutes left.
Yes.
Okay, something just popped up. That's why.
So the Ben Casey episode, A Little Fun to Match the Sorrow, we'll probably talk about again for his TV directed work. But that's definitely one of my favorite performances of his in both.
How many times did he do Ben Casey?
Just the once.
Okay, then I have seen it, but it's
just the once, yeah.
Yeah, just his whole, like, he does have, like, I feel like the one part where, like, he's just, like, kind of making a joke out of everything to mask his pain so he doesn't have to deal with stuff. I feel like, that's kind of him in general, and this the whole, it's a take about comedy that you're putting on a show to hide the pain. That's basically the statement he's making there, but that it always just, sometimes you just gotta let it out and be serious. And his character doesn't know how to do that, or that it's okay to do that until the very end, where he just has this breakdown after one of his patients dies.
Wow.
And it's a very powerful scene where he's in the stairwell and he's crying, and his co-star is, comforting him. And then he has this speech with Vince Edwards, Ben Casey afterwards, where he's like, I've been unmasked, and I don't know if I can continue this job anymore, because, I'm gonna have a breakdown, basically. He's like, and Ben Casey just didn't take him seriously because he was a clown, and he was always on him. Oh, and James Best is also in that as a
right.
great, second fiddle or whatever in that episode. But yeah, I think it's just one of his best acting efforts, as is Wise Guy. His 5-episode stint on Wise Guy, especially where he loses his son, he thinks he's missing at first. And then also, before that, it's kind of Jerry just being, a character like himself, or as in, not King of Comedy-ish, but it's a serious Jerry, but like sort of a character he would play in other TV episodes.
I would say his best.
Not a TV episode, but like Cookie, he plays a character like that also on that film.
What was the cop show in 2005 that he did? To me, that was his finest television, dramatic acting.
So Law and Order SVU.
Yeah.
So that was
a home run.
That was definitely very good. Very different to see him like that. As homeless, and he's just very disheveled, and
but they clean him up, and
then he's like Dr. Jerry.
But his character was kind of special needs, right, or something like that.
I think he had Alzheimer's or something, and then he kills a man. He pushes the pedophile off into the train tracks. That was pretty good. But yeah, Wise Guy, when he's about to shoot Stanley Tucci, he's coming after him to kill him, and he's very, very angry character.
I need to I need to binge watch that whole part of Wise Guy. It's been a long time.
Wise Guy is very good. Like those 5 episodes, that's the only part of Wise Guy I've watched, but those 5 episodes are pretty good and pretty intense. It's almost like a mini movie.
Miniseries. Yeah, miniseries. All right, well, in these remaining moments, y'all, let's wrap it up. And I think this is I'm going to enjoy watching this one back. Kat, you don't have to labor yourself by adding all the stills and stuff. If you want to just put it up the raw footage, that's fine. But if you want to add stuff to it as well, that's fine.
Yes, I will add production to it.
All right. You're just so awesome.
Which you are an angel, Kat, for doing that.
And with our podcast as well. And I also want to mention, y'all, Kat is one of the air talents for my web radio station, modernretroradio.com and modernretrofm.com. And we've done a couple of Friday nights with her. And, and she definitely, and I monitor the IP addresses. And so there's always a nice bevy of new IP addresses that come to the station because of her spreading the word on Facebook. So thank you and we're working on some new ones. I have her doing 4 Jamiroquai songs. Do you know who Jamiroquai is, Thad?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
so,
I got style.
I know. And who else? What other artists are you doing, Kat?
We have Ella Fitzgerald. We have Lindsey Buckingham. You asked me to do that one.
It was Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie.
Yes, Christine McVie. And a new one from Evanescence.
Yes.
You haven't had on them before. Al Green, and then we got 4 Jamiroquai songs, and
I'll play with the rotations. When we do your next shift, I won't play them all in the. I'll pick the 2 best, but all 4 will be in the regular rotation because I love Jamiroquai. I love.
Oh, and then we have Robbie Williams and Rod Stewart for a duet.
Okay. Oh, speaking of Jamiroquai, this is how you pronounce that album from 2017, because I didn't know. It's Automaton.
Oh, Automaton. Oh, okay.
Kind of like it's little Japanese, Automaton.
Okay. Automaton.
Automaton.
All right, I'll edit it.
No, just do it again. I deleted the email. Do it again. I think you said automation or something, or
automaton.
You're putting it on the wrong syllable. So.
Automaton. Okay.
Well, I can't wait to see this on YouTube, and thanks to the folks who enjoy this, our videos, and we are the mod squad of the internet. What can I say?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's going to be the next Jerry topic?
Well, we got the directed episodes, TV episodes that Jerry Lewis did. We've Super Force.
Can I throw in something?
Yes.
Can you print a whole bunch of pictures of Jerry and test me? And because I told you, if I can see his hair, I can tell you what year it is.
Okay.
So print 10 pictures of Jerry.
Okay.
I'll pay for your ink cartridge, okay? And then let's see if I can guess the year.
Well, I'll just send them to you. I'll just send
No. I want you to, in our next Zoom thing, I want you to hold up the picture. I want to guess in real time the year.
Okay. All right.
We'll make it like a little contest. All right.